Wrath of the Queen. The stars over Kelporn Prime burned in silence. But deep beneath the black marble towers of the Serpent Citadel, Queen Dravara was not silent. Her breath coiled like venom as she stood before the Council of Shards, eyes glowing with fury that twisted the edges of her voice into blades. "A human," she hissed. "A mechanic, not a general, not a threat, has crippled the engine of my warship with nothing but rusted tools and primitive fusion tricks." She crushed the crystal record of the incident in her talon hand, shards crunching like bone. The room remained silent. No one dared speak. The mechanic's name was Corin Vetch, a man known only in backwater circles for salvaging wrecked war cruisers and giving them second lives. Somehow he had infiltrated the Queen's Imperial siege ship, Dominion's Veil, planted an overload coil, and vanished without a trace. No fleet caught him. No camera identified his route. What he left behind was humiliation. The Queen did not tolerate being laughed at, and the sound of Corin's name had begun to carry through the darker sectors like a joke that refused to fade. That was when she turned to her most ancient weapon, the one she'd kept locked in the twilight vaults. Zarin, the Shadow Leopard. The creature had been bred in orbital darkness and trained to kill without sound. Its skin was obsidian black, freckled with silver runes like falling stars. Its breath was frost. Its claws had once sliced through an armored dread knight from throat to core in under 5 seconds. It did not obey anyone but her. It didn't need to. She spoke one command, a single venom-coated whisper: "Find him. Bring me his skull." Zarin leapt from the high spires into the void, its body slipping through the stars like a shadow given purpose. Tracking Corin's trail was like chasing wine through lightning fields. But the beast did not falter. It caught scent in the magnetic wreck zones above Poldra 7, where rusted freighters floated like dead whales and the air crackled with old engine bleed. The encounter. Down below, in a broken hangar half buried in red dust, Corin Vetch wiped oil from his cheek and rolled his eyes at a whining capacitor. His tool kit was scattered across the floor, components piled high, sparks drifting up from a poorly welded junction. "I swear," he muttered, tightening a screw. Every ship in this sector was built by drunk droids. The growl came from behind him, low, sharp, primal, not like any beast from a known biosphere. This one trembled with otherworldly resonance, like space folding inward. Corin turned slowly and saw it. Eyes like twin voids, breath steaming across broken metal. A figure so impossibly elegant in its fury that it looked carved from the night itself. "Oh," Corin said, blinking. "You're new." Zarin crouched. Every muscle tensed for the killing strike. But it didn't leap. Not immediately. Because in that moment, the predator hesitated, not out of confusion, but pain. Its front paw faltered, dragging slightly, barely noticeable. "Unless you'd spent your life studying machines and movement." Corin saw it instantly. "You've got a torn kinetic tendon," he said calmly. "Probably from overuse. Maybe a fractured bone plate under that rune armor. That's a Queen's override shard I see pulsing just under the joint, isn't it?" Zarin froze, its fangs bared, breath quickening. But it didn't strike. Corin stood slowly, not reaching for a weapon. Only his toolkit. "I'm not saying you should trust me," he murmured. "But you're limping, and I can fix limps." The beast lowered its head slightly. A test, a flicker of curiosity. Or perhaps surrender. Corin stepped forward. "Good cat." The healing. In the dim ruin of that sand-choked hangar, man and monster regarded each other without war. Corin crouched near Zarin's forelimb, inspecting the faint red glow where metal pulsed beneath living flesh. The Queen's override shard, an imperial implant laced with biorol and rage modulation, was cracked, bleeding sparks. "No wonder," Corin muttered. The creature was twitching. Its body was at war with itself. "This tech," Corin muttered gently, reaching into his pack, "is outdated but dangerous. She tried to patch your instincts with algorithms. That's why it hurts. Zarin didn't flinch, didn't growl, only watched. Corin unplugged a voltage suppressor from an old ship battery, rewired it through a stabilizer, and slowly slid the casing beneath the jagged wound. This will suppress the override and reset your limb's neural feedback. You'll still be dangerous, just less miserable. With a flick and a hum, the makeshift rig locked into place. Zarin flinched once but didn't strike. Then, with a slow, careful motion, the great beast uncoiled its limbs and tested the repaired leg. It moved cleanly, smoothly, without pain. Zarin looked at Corin with something far deeper than instinct. Not obedience, not submission, but awareness. Corin straightened, his face unreadable. I just fixed the Queen's weapon. Probably means you'll kill me faster, huh? Zarin stepped forward, close enough for Corin to feel its breath. It didn't lunge. Instead, it turned slowly and crouched low in the sand, inviting him. Corin blinked. You're kidding. The beast looked back. He sighed, slung his toolkit over his shoulder, and climbed on. And together, they vanished into the storm. Back in her citadel, Queen Dravara stared at a live feed from a far-seeing drone, watching her beast carry the mechanic through the ruins of her wrath. She gripped the edge of her throne, eyes wild with disbelief. He's riding it. The Alliance. The next sunrise over the wastes of Sinandar was seen not from a planet's surface but from the broken spine of a floating junkyard that orbited like a rotted tooth above a dying moon. Corin and Zarin had made camp inside a derelict freighter-turned-fuel farm. Tucked between heaps of forgotten tech and half-alive plasma coils, the leopard beast lay coiled in the shadows, tail flicking as it listened to the steady rhythm of Corin's tools scraping against metal. Corin sat cross-legged on the hull, grease staining his coat, rewiring a transmission array he'd ripped from the remains of a comm satellite. This should do it, he murmured, twisting the last connector breath tight. Now let's see how long we can bluff an empire. The moment he activated the transmitter, screens lit up across outer sectors. Bars, warships, pirate dens, and refugee outposts suddenly flickered with a grainy feed showing a human sitting calmly beside a shadow leopard whose name made assassins flinch. Corin leaned into the camera, goggles pushed to his forehead, and gave the galaxy the most casual grin it had seen since the last Galactic War. Name's Corin Vetch, he said. If you're seeing this, then the Queen's probably already choking on her rage and wondering why her deadliest pet's carrying my toolkit instead of my corpse. He reached out of frame and scratched behind Zarin's ear. The beast made a sound like a breathless growl, low and approving. I didn't chain him, Corin continued. Didn't bribe him, just fixed what she broke and let him decide. The feed cut as he rerouted the signal through 5 dead relays and into a pirate echo loop that would rebroadcast the message on repeat for 12 cycles. The rebellion. Word of Corin's broadcast spread across the sector like wildfire. Stories began multiplying, the mechanic and the shadow beast raiding Imperial outposts, leaving broken control systems and liberated prisoners in their wake. Queen Dravara dispatched her entire fleet, but every ambush failed. The mechanic knew ships better than their builders did, he could vanish through maintenance shafts that weren't even on the schematics. And Zarin, the Queen's ultimate hunter, now used those same tracking skills to avoid her forces. The tables had completely turned. In the central command chamber of the Serpent Citadel, Dravara's advisors cowered as she paced, her talons leaving gouges in the marble floor. It's not just the mechanic anymore, one general whispered. Other systems are rising. They've made him a symbol. Across a dozen worlds, citizens were shaking off Imperial control systems. Mechanics inspired by Corin were dismantling override nodes, technicians were refusing commands, and ships were changing course. All because one man showed the galaxy that even the Queen's most controlled weapon could choose freedom. 3 cycles later, as dawn broke over Kelporn Prime, the Imperial alarm systems blared. Security feeds showed the impossible, Zarin, the shadow leopard, stalking through the corridors of the very citadel that had created him. And on his back rode Corin Vetch, toolkit slung over his shoulder, his expression calm as though he were merely making a routine service call. Guards scattered before them. Not a single shot was fired. When they reached the throne room doors, Corin dismounted and patted Zarin's flank. "Let's finish this," he said quietly. The doors slid open. Queen Dravara stood alone, her back rigid, eyes burning with hatred and, just barely visible, fear. "Have you come to kill me, mechanic?" she hissed. Corin shook his head, setting his toolkit on the floor. "I fix things, your majesty. I don't break them. But I'm not fixing your control systems anymore." He gestured toward Zarin. "Neither is he. Then why come here at all? To show you what happens when you build your empire on broken parts." Corin's voice remained level. "Every system has its breaking point. Every machine knows when it's being abused." He turned to leave, Zarin at his side. At the threshold, he paused. "There's a revolution of repair happening out there. People fixing what you broke. Building something better." As they walked away through the silent corridors, transmissions across the galaxy showed the footage, the Queen's deadliest weapon and a simple mechanic, walking free from the heart of her power. The message was clear: if the Shadow Leopard could choose its own path, perhaps the Empire itself could be rewired. Corin and Zarin disappeared into the stars, but the tools they left behind, courage, choice, and the power of repair, continued to dismantle an empire, one broken system at a time. The end.